All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. We'll give it a minute here and let people file in. Got a pretty good turnout today. I think Microsoft Teams remains a pretty popular topic. All right, so let's get going here. Looks like we got a pretty good crowd here. So welcome everybody. My name's Alan Bauman. For those of you who don't know me, I'm one of the partners here at CompuWorks. And this is our monthly webinar. Very happy to have all of you here. The topic, as I mentioned, is Microsoft Teams. This is the Beyond the Basics version. So, if you're one of the folks that have been using Teams, this is a great, sort of next level training course. And interesting, as we were preparing for this, I was curious to see, what the trajectory of Teams adoption has been over the past couple of years. I think, we saw a real explosion in the use of Teams, coinciding with the start of the pandemic for obvious reasons. For a lot of folks, it became kind of home base. I know it did for us, and we find ourselves working in Teams all day long. But some interesting statistics I thought I would just share with folks. In 2021, Microsoft reported 145 million Teams users. And by the end of 2022, that number had grown to 1.4 billion. So if you think about that, I mean, that's a 10x expansion in 1 year. So to say that Teams has become, widely used is an understatement. So this should be an interesting and hopefully useful session for you guys. Just, quick housekeeping. If I know that I'm recognizing a lot of faces that have been here before. So, if you do have questions, we want to hear them. The best way to ask those questions is by using the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. For those folks that, couldn't attend here, colleagues that, you may think would find some of this information useful, we are recording this session. And as with all the sessions that we do, those recordings are available on our website. Just look for our training library and you'll see, everything that we've done. This session will probably be posted by the end of the day tomorrow, typically is what to expect. And again, for folks that have been here, I almost feel like Jolynn, I don't need to introduce you anymore. You've become such a staple here, but it's really great to have Jolynn Reen with us again as our instructor. And I don't know how many of these sessions we've done together. It's been quite a few. It's, almost 2 years now we've been doing these monthly sessions. So, and we've started to do some of these for clients too. So if you do have an interest in more of a custom kind of a training session, we are doing that. Jolynn and I just did one yesterday. So
absolutely.
Great to have you again, Jolynn, and I'm interested to see what you have to say about Teams because I'm sure I'm going to learn something today. So I have my pen ready to go, taking notes.
You had mentioned that it was being recorded. I didn't see that the recording had started.
It is actually. It
Okay.
Started just
right
wanted
to double check.
Yep.
Okay, because I
Thank you.
usually see something that pops up and I didn't, but just wanted to mention that. But hey, welcome everybody. Teams Beyond the Basics is definitely something. If you're new to Teams, you're just getting started with Teams, you've already been using Teams, I'm sure you'll come across some of the wonderful features that this program has to offer. But I want to piggyback on the conversation that Alan was just talking about with the history of the number of users of Microsoft Teams here for a moment. Earlier today, I was working on some things that was related to hybrid meetings. The way that we first started with these virtual meetings is during COVID, we really were away from everybody. Everybody was attending from their own physical location. And we didn't really have people in a room together. Well, now we have the hybrid where some people are back in the office sometimes, some people are still working remotely. So I know Microsoft Teams is coming up with some new ways, and so is Zoom. New features are going to be built into these applications. Microsoft Teams, Zoom, WebEx, etc. They will all have some new features that will be specifically related to hybrid meetings. So something to keep your eye out for that will be coming up new. But I want to go ahead.
I just
Yes,
wanted
go
to just
ahead,
jump
Alan.
in there because, one of I remember the first time we did this team session, people were curious, well, why were you running a Teams session and using Zoom to do that? And, I'll tell you the reason is that Zoom does a much better job at webinars. So webinar and a meeting are really much, much different things. A webinar, has presenters and an audience. It's not just, not just anybody can speak. There's a lot more control with it. But I am really curious to see when Teams is going to catch up, because I got to believe that that's going to happen.
Well, and another thing with that, the reason, because I get questioned all the time, why are you doing a Teams meeting and you're using Zoom for the connection? Well, a big reason for me all the time is because of the fact that if I demonstrate something like doing a meeting, I disconnect the meeting, you guys are gone. So we do need to use a different application. We can't be using Teams if we're demonstrating Teams. So kind of another thought on that process as well. But let's talk about this program called Microsoft Teams. So, of course, Microsoft Teams is an application that we have that we really have the capabilities of communicating in so many different ways. And when we talk about modern communication, yes, we still have the email capabilities, but programs like Microsoft Teams have taken us so much further. It's really, we need to, because of the hybrid situation and, a lot of people still working from home, we need a program like this. And Microsoft Teams to me goes way beyond what other programs can do because of its other features, not just the video conferencing, the video meeting capabilities. It goes way beyond that. So first, just to give you a description of what exactly is Microsoft Teams, it's a collaboration tool that we can use on any device. So we could be using Teams on a tablet, we could be using it on a desktop computer. I personally am using it on my phone as well. As a matter of fact, I was using it just a little while ago. So if I send something or receive something in Teams, my phone goes off as well as my notification on my computer. So if I'm not carrying my laptop with me to travel, it doesn't matter. I'm still in Teams. I can attend meetings from my phone, everything. So we need that these days. This is the modern way of working. I remember back in the IBM days when we wore a suit every day and, our communication tools were very limited, as Ellen and I were talking about history. It's just crazy to see where we are so far with Teams. New and exciting things always coming. So inside this program called Teams, which has chatting, it has phone call capabilities, it has meeting capabilities. It also has this feature called Teams. But before I kind of dive into that, I wanted to talk about because, kind of taking this beyond your typical use of the program. You know how you have your navigation pane on the left-hand side? Did you know that's customizable? Right now, I took off what you normally would see, because I want to add them back in just to show you that if you're regularly using other applications and you want to be able to quickly and easily get to those, because we always talk about time savers and, doing things efficiently, I don't want to have to leave Teams to go work on something else. Even if I want to use a program like the Planner /to-dos, I can add that to the navigation pane. Or I do a lot with Adobe. I work with Adobe and Teams together so that I can track if I send something out for signature, I get that tracking capabilities. Those are all incorporated right here in Teams. All I have to do is go to the left-hand side. I can either click on the dot menu, and from here I can open up any of my apps. I'm going to show you just as an example. I'll open up my Task by Planner and To-Do. I don't know if you're a user of this application, but I can't live without it. It's something that I'm in all day long, every day, because I need to know what's going on. And it connects me with not just my personal tasks, but any tasks that are assigned to me that are coming from other places. like a SharePoint site or directly here in a team site. So I think it's wonderful to have that accessible right here on the menu. Also, I can pin it so that it stays here. Otherwise, if I navigate to something else, it will go away. If I want it to stay here, I right-click on the icon. That right-click menu always gives you your most common commands for where you're at the time. So I can click pin and it will stay there. If I want to add a program like Adobe Acrobat, you have to, of course, have a license for some of these third-party applications. But if I go to the apps, I can actually search for a specific app. Or once again, I could go to the dot menu to open things up from here directly as well. So it all kind of depends on where you want to search for them. But if I'm looking for Adobe, oops, I have to spell it correctly first. It's not going to find it if I don't spell it right. But if I want to add in Adobe Acrobat, I can click on it and I can say open, and it's going to automatically open that application directly here in Teams because I have a license for it, so I can actively use it. So it wants me to sign in, of course, with my Adobe account information. Once again, that can also be pinned. Hopefully, nope, I didn't think that was my right password. I'll worry about signing into that later. But just so you can see, you can add quick, easy access to these other things that can be incorporated right in Teams, or you can use right on their own. Okay, take advantage of that. We work way too hard on things that we don't have to. Save your energy. We have too many other things to think about. So customize that user interface. Make sure that you're taking advantage of that menu on the left-hand side. So enough about
Jolynn,
that. Yeah.
So just a question for you. So one of the things I've thought about, I don't even know if I would like this, but is there a way to integrate Outlook into Teams? I mean, would you ever put an Outlook icon there, or is that not a great idea?
Outlook is not integrated in this respect just yet. Just yet. It will be. So when I do a search for Outlook, Outlook's not going to come up as an app, but we have, of course, the other integration with Outlook, because when we're in the calendar, we're really in Outlook. When we do other aspects, we're really in Outlook. So Outlook and Teams already do have a connection, but we don't have access to like our inbox. Those types of things are not accessible through Teams at this time. Have I read that that could happen in the future? Absolutely. Okay. So we could have one program integrated to do everything. So nice. We'll have to keep an eye on that and see if that does come into play, which hopefully it does. It's, because we try to find all these efficiencies of, things that we want, that we use on a daily basis that we want to have quick, easy access to. And that's definitely one of them that we want to be doing. All right. My mouse fell asleep there for a second. I had to move my battery around. Kind of crazy. I'll change my battery after class. But one of the things about using Microsoft Teams that I wanted to mention here today is if you have not already planned for how your organization is going to use Teams. I know I didn't at first. I remember I was actually doing a training in Boston, and the night before my class, I had a project management class I was teaching, and the night before was when Teams came out, or the day before it was announced. And so immediately I was telling everybody in this class about it. By the time we got done with that session, the IT guy in the class actually had created a team for the IT department. So a lot of times we don't plan ahead, but I'm telling you to kind of step back a minute and think about planning your teams before you dive in with both feet. If you've already started, that's okay. Just kind of take a step back and think about the things I'm going to mention here for a moment. And the next time you kind of go to create a new team, stop and plan first. As an organization, we really want to think about the security side of things. There should be somebody that's an admin, somebody in IT is usually the admin for Teams, where they're going to turn on and turn off different features, let us know what apps we have available. Sometimes in organizations, they are the ones that will create the team. They will then make someone else who's going to be the kind of the leader of the team. They will have them become an owner with them. And then sometimes they'll leave depending on, what it is that we need. But we do not spend enough time planning before we build. And that's with SharePoint, that's with Teams, that's with anything that we do. I even do it with Excel. I design a lot of Access databases, and I can't tell you enough on planning. Okay, I do have an IT background and I'm a project manager, so I plan everything, but still we need to plan. And here's some reasons why. We want to know, what is the objective of the team? We don't want to end up with duplicate teams that really have the same objective, because I could have thought of it and Alan could have thought of it, and we could have both gone out there and created a team that's doing the same thing. So we don't want duplication. We want a good naming convention as well. So what is the team going to be named? Who's going to need to have access to the team? Who's going to be the owners, the members, the guests? What permission levels are you going to allow the members to have? And I'm going to get into where you do that today, because I am shocked at how many teams are out there that they never went in and changed the rights of a member. I'll show you what I mean. What information needs to be available in the team? So when we create a team, it's going to consist of channels. There'll be a general channel, of course, by default, but then we can create channels which are used for specific topics. Like if I have a training, or let me say marketing department, I have a team for my marketing department. I could have a separate channel for, certain types of marketing materials, templates, those kind of things. I could have a different channel for social media. We have all these options of separating things based on how they're related to each other, but everything needs to be directly related to the name of the team. So inside the channels, we put apps. They're known as tabs. They go across the top on the right. And we need to think about ahead of time, what apps are we going to use? Now, of course, that can change later. You might want to add something in after you've created the team, and that's okay. But plan as far ahead as you possibly can before you even invite people. Because when you create a team, our biggest habit is we're going to invite people right away. But you know what? You haven't even created the team yet. Why invite people to nothing? Because you haven't done anything in it yet. All you've done is create a general channel. That's it. Wait and invite them after you've created. Okay, that was a mistake that I made several times over, and now it is a bad habit for me, so I don't do that habit anymore. I have a pattern that I follow instead. I create it, I get what I need in it first, then I'll go back and add my members, my guests, etc. Okay, always start with a private team and no members or guests. So as I was just mentioning, but usually I start with a private team because I don't want it accessible to everybody within my organization, and only admins can create an org-wide team. Only admins can create an org-wide team. Okay, so back into teams. If I go to the left-hand side and I click on teams, you can, of course, see all the teams that I have access to. There is a channel that I use on a regular basis, and instead of me going through each of my teams to try and find that channel, I pinned it to the top. So take advantage of features like that, because, and by the way, I shrink up my channels as well, because we can end up having several channels, and if you don't need them all expanded, shrink them up. I even have some hidden teams. So I have teams that I hide because, yes, I still want to have access to them. I don't want to leave the team, but I don't need them accessible all the time, so I hide them. So we'll go through where do you do all these features. But when it comes to kind of the building side, and I talked about the fact that you want to think about what channels you're going to have, people create channels right away. They think, oh, I got to have this, this, and this. At some point, you may say, I don't have enough channels because we have all these different entities to this department or to this actual project we're working on. Separate things as needed, because of the fact that you're going to see that you will have different apps for every channel. So when I come into this Microsoft 365 team, I have this general channel that has apps, the tabs going across the top right. They are different than if I go into this channel called Apps in 365. I'm going to have different tabs going across the top. So I can have a different planner. I can have a different OneNote notebook. I can have a different link to a website or have it automatically open up an Excel spreadsheet, those kind of things. It can be totally different for every channel that you use, which is why we do channels, so that it's different information in every channel. So make sure you know who your members are going to be versus a guest. Make sure you know which apps you're going to be adding to which channels. When we talk about owners versus guests versus members, owners will have full rights to a team. Members have way too many rights, but they are part of your organization. So anybody in your company that you add into teams, to a team, I should say, they are a member by default. You can, of course, turn them into an owner, but a guest cannot become an owner. A guest is somebody from outside of your organization. Now, I will get into managing those in just a moment. But think about when you go to create a new team, you're going to need to give it a name, a description, which should be the objective, and then skip adding team members. Get it created first. That's going to save you so much time and headaches in the long run. But I want to kind of talk first about these tabs that we have going across the top. Absolutely.
Can I just jump in? Sorry. So I just wanted to share some experience that we've had with teams. And by the way, I think everything you're saying is 100% on the money. And when we launched teams, really for us, it was the start of the pandemic. We had never used teams. We didn't, so we became a victim of what is known as team sprawl. And so we had all these teams and all these channels, and there hadn't been any real thought in terms of like what we were going to use these for. And there were a lot of like overlap, and it wasn't clear where data was stored. And after about 6 months, we realized we needed to just stop. Yes. And rather than do anything, we decided to build a map of what we wanted our team's environment to look like. And and based on that map, and we had a lot of meetings about, what teams do we need, who needs to be in those teams, what channels are under those teams, what information is stored in those channels. So before we even clicked a mouse, we wound up doing that, and I found that to be enormously helpful. We more or less scrapped or rearranged the initial environment. So exactly, a plan.
This is how I do it.
Yep, that's what we did. We used a spreadsheet, and we had a bunch of meetings. And I'll tell you that what came out of that plan is still what we use today, and it's because it made sense. Yes. So just a little bit of experience from us.
So, and I want everybody to kind of think about that, because if you have already started using Teams, and if you're in IT or if you're in management, you're a super user, whatever your role might be, if your organization hasn't had a good grasp and didn't create any rules or policies or anything for using Microsoft Teams, now's your time to do that. It's not too late. It's okay that you have these out there. Don't get rid of them, just say, okay, we're going to can them all. No, don't do that. But start a list. Go into the admin side of Teams, make a document as to which teams we have, what's going on with all the teams. Look at the analysis. I mean, there's analytic tools built in that you can actually see the activity and everything that's going on with your teams and with your channels. Look at those. That's going to help you to kind of see, are these teams even being used? Then you can start narrowing things down. If you start to see that there's duplication, you can eliminate the duplication and start really kind of getting your teams more organized, and then just create some policies and procedures. And, because we have to think about the security side of everything too, because if we have external people, there's some new things for external people, though, I want to mention. A little bit beyond our topic here today, but just to kind of be thinking about how your organization really needs to be using these teams, because we don't want to have a gazillion apps either. We only want the apps that are necessary for that specific channel. When it comes to adding these apps in, it's so easy to do. You get by default a post tab and a files tab. So if I'm posting something and I add a file to the post, it's going to automatically be stored in the Files tab. But keep in mind, everybody that has rights to that team is accessible to each of those files and all information that is stored on each of these tabs. So keep that in mind. If you have confidential information, be careful. I'll talk about that in just 1 second. But you can always add a new app very easy just by going to the top, clicking on the plus sign, search for the app that you want to add, and you'll automatically be able to see that. So if I wanted to add an existing Excel spreadsheet to be a tab, because we're all using it and it's going to be easier for us to get to it if it's a tab on the top, click on Excel as being one of the tabs, choose one of your files that you want to have accessible from wherever that file is coming from, and that will then be a tab up at the top. Okay, so just so you know, it's very easy, but you can also manage these tabs. You can't do anything with the Post tab and the Files tab, but all of these other tabs, if you right click on them, you will be able to see what your choices are for managing these tabs, whether it's renaming them, removing them, or some of these actually have different settings depending on which app it is. A wiki doesn't have settings, but these others will, like an Excel. So you can always go into the settings for whatever it is and make modifications. So the big thing about that is if you need to modify what the object is or remove it, you can. Okay. But you want to really be thinking about, what do I need for channels? And you'll notice in this team that I have called Microsoft 365, I actually have 2 channels with padlocks. We don't just want channels that everybody has access to. Sometimes you will want a private channel. A private channel can be created just like your regular channels, but you just change your security to private. Then you can add members that are already a member of the team. They can become a member of a private channel. If you are not a member of a private channel, you will not even see it underneath the name of the team. Only the people that are a member of a private channel will see it. So you have to have rights to it. So if you have confidential information that you want to be sharing with a group of people in this team, you may want to consider doing it as a private channel. Okay. Channels are also managed by going to the channel itself and going to the menu on the right, or of course, right clicking on it. I do have a description in your handout that you'll receive when you get the link to the video here, but you will get a description of what each of these options are for. So whether you want to modify the notifications that the channel gives you, you want to pin it or unpin it. Like I said, I have this one pinned to the top, this apps in 365, because I use it all the time. It's just easier for me to get to at the top. Also, I can go into manage channel, where if I want to see the analytics of this channel, I can go into the analytics. I'm going to go back to the right click of that as well. Every channel has an email address. So you could share the email address by copying it and then share it with someone via email or however you want to share it with them. And then they could send an email to that channel's post tab. It would go directly to that channel's post tab. And then people can reply to it through that post. Okay, just so you know that's accessible. I love that feature. We also can get a link to the channel to also share the channel with somebody else. We can edit the channel. So if we want to edit the name, we want to edit the description, we could do things like that. So the whole thing is being managed by going to the menu for that object. Typically, we're right clicking on whatever the object is. We also can manage, go back to my same channel here. We can also manage the connectors. So if we have third-party apps connected to Teams, this is where we can go and manage those because that's a per channel situation. So depending on what apps your company has rights to, who has a user account for things, we can manage those connectors. We can also delete a channel. So if you have rights to delete a channel, you will see that feature available. So it all depends on your role. But if you delete a channel, the channel can still be recovered. It can be restored within 30 days of it being deleted, just so you know. And then when it comes to the teams themselves, I want to talk about the management side of the teams, because it's very important to understand the background of a team, especially when you're planning. So these are things that I do before I invite members. I will go to the team, do a right click, and look at what my menu choices are. From this menu, I could hide the team, so then it would go under my hidden teams. But the big thing here is manage teams. If I go into this manage teams, it's going to give me several choices across the top. Right now I'm on members. I would be able to see any of the owners or any of the guests or members would be listed here, as well as me being able to add new people. If it is a member, I can actually go to the right-hand side, click on the drop-down, and choose them to become an owner. But before I even do that, to be honest, the first thing I do after I create the team, the very first thing I do is go to settings. So I'm going to jump right to the settings, because this is the most important part of once you create the team. So if you have never been in here, now's your time to check this out. First off, you could do a team picture. So instead of having the generic square, like for my virtual training one, I have a cloud icon. You could, and my clinic has an icon, which that's actually a SharePoint site, but it's a team SharePoint site, but you can change the picture. You also want to go, this is the most important part, is going to the members' permissions. Number one thing you need to look at. If you look through this list of everything that is already checked, it means that members can do these things. To me, this is crazy. Members are allowed to create private channels. Members are allowed to create and update channels. They're allowed to delete them. They can add and remove apps. Personally, I don't like that. So when I create a team for other people to use, they're going to be members. They won't have these checked. The only two things that I leave checked are the last two. Give members the options to delete their messages. So if they go into a post and post something, they could delete it, or they can actually edit. They can edit their posts. Those are the only two things that I generally keep as choices for a member to do. Otherwise, I personally feel that these are owner options, not members. There is also a category here for guest permissions. If I uncheck what members can do, guests will not be allowed to do these either. It would even be available to click on the right-hand side, but allow guests to create and update channels or allow guests to delete channels. To me, that's a huge red flag. These are people from outside of your organization. I believe that these are things that should only be done by the owners. But there's some other things that I want to talk about. The @ mentions. So let me kind of shrink some of these back up here, but the @ mentions. Choose who can use @team or @channel mentions. So I'm not sure if you're a user of the @ symbol, where you're going to say @ and then put in a person's name so they get a notification that you mentioned them. Well, here in Teams, we could take that further by using what are called tags. So down at the bottom here where it says tags, if I expand this out, tags can be managed by team owners and or members. Owners or members. Now, what exactly does that mean? That means that when I'm managing this team, I can go to the team, do my right click, and go into Manage Tags. This will allow me to create new tags or delete existing tags. What does that mean? This to me is such a time saver, because let's say that I'm going to send a notification out to, everybody that's in my my team members, there's 5 people out of the 20 team members that I want to make sure that they see this information. I do it on a regular basis. Let's say, and my example here is social media. If I'm in the marketing department and I have a group of coworkers that are our social media experts, every time I want to mention those social media people, in the past, I would have to do them each individually. But here I can create a tag for it so that the tag is going to include all 3 of those people. So all I would do is go to the top right, click create tag, and maybe it's going to be for the accounting department and it's going to be for the people that do the AP, the accounts payable. Then I can put in who the people are that I want to be as part of that tag. So I can put in multiple people. Oops, I didn't mean to do that person. So I can add in as many people as I want to be a part of that specific @mention tag. Then when I click create, we can then do an @mention for that social media, the AP, whatever it is that I have actually created tags for. I love that. That has saved me so much time and energy. It's kind of crazy that we get that feature. So take advantage of having those kind of things. But I think the biggest thing that people are missing when they create a team these days is coming into the settings before you invite your members or your guests. Come into the member permissions is my #1 thing. If you don't have time for anything else, take time for this. It is 100% worth it. Believe me, because I've had people come in and say, well, I don't think anybody's using that channel, and they'll just delete it. So we want to kind of keep a little bit better control on what happens with our teams. The owner really should be the only person, as far as I'm personally concerned. That's part of my governance policy with teams, is owners only. But your department or your company might be, small, and it's okay that they do it because we're all working together on these anyway. So it is a per company decision. You have to have your own governance policies and procedures. But I just want to share with you these great tools that we do have for managing these teams. So back to my right click again. We can, of course, add channels from the right click. We can add members. We personally can leave a team. Even if you're the only owner, you could leave a team. But that team is going to be left as an orphan. Only admins, IT admins, would have access to get to that team. Of course, guests can still see it because we didn't delete the team. We could go back in and edit the team. So if we want to change the name, we want to update the description, or down at the bottom where it has privacy options, we could change that to be in a different type of team. Because when I first create it, it's private. So once I have it created, maybe I want it to go public, where anybody in my organization can search for the team and join it. Org-wide, as I mentioned earlier, can only be created by an admin. So they wouldn't even see it on the list if they're not an admin, because everybody in the company would see that team automatically. They don't have to ask to be a member or anything. So something to keep in mind. And then also you can get a link to the team so that you could share that with others to have them join the team. You can manage the tags, as I mentioned, or you can delete the team. Once again, we have 30 days to recover the team. The team can be recovered by an admin. So if we accidentally delete a team, which I did that once, I'm the admin, so I was able to go back in and recover the team, but just so you know, you can delete them. And for those of you that didn't really plan ahead, we just started using teams, and now we're going to go back and, kind of start a plan. If you have duplicate information and you move things to one team to consolidate, and now you want to get rid of a team or two, this is where you would go to do that. You do have to be an owner. By default, you have to be an owner to delete the team. Okay, so whoever created it, or an admin, an IT admin person. But that would be managing the team. And I think it's extremely important to understand, not only just managing your apps, we manage our channels and we manage our teams as well. Okay. So going back and being able to change someone from a member to an owner, owner to a member, whatever it is that you need to be managing. Okay. So when it comes to using these @mentions, I do recommend these @mentions. I should say highly recommend those @mentions. All your instructions and creating those custom tags, the information is going to be located in the handout you will receive. But just so you know, if I go to a post tab, that is one place that I can use the @mention. So if I'm down into a conversation, I did if I do an @ symbol, it's gonna, for some reason I did my V. As soon as I do just the @ symbol, it pops up to show me what my choices are for this specific team. So I can see that I could @mention social media, any of my team members. I've got some forms and different things, Microsoft Forms and things that I could do an @mention to. So just so you can see your @mention choices. And then those people that are part of that tag or that @mention, they will receive a notification. So if I do an @mention and by the way, I'm going to create this as a announcement. Well, actually, let me do this a little bit different here. Just so you're aware of how this works, let me click send. I just want to get that off my screen here. Because one of the things about, and I think this is more of an advanced feature with using Microsoft Teams, the post tab is related to the channel you're in, where you can communicate directly within that channel. But chatting is extremely popular as well. Chatting is more of a one-on-one or group chat with other people, not necessarily everybody that's a member in this team. So if I go to my chat, just to kind of show you that it's very similar to what you see when you actually come in to the post, you get a lot of the same bells and whistles down at the bottom. But one of them that I do want to mention, which is extremely popular, and yes, I do have this in your handout that you will receive, is the fact that down at the bottom, I can click on the exclamation mark. From that exclamation mark, I can turn this into an urgent chat. So if I need to get a hold of the person that I'm chatting with and I need their attention now, I can actually do an urgent chat. And as you can see, it's going to give them a notification every 2 minutes for 20 minutes because I wasn't able to get in touch with them. This is a way for me to do that. So you know how you get different notifications where you'll get the banner notification at the bottom right of your screen. You'll get the red circle with a number on your Teams icon and on your navigation pane, depending on what topic it is. An urgent message is going to do all of that. Plus, it's going to email the person. So it sends them an email letting them know that they have an urgent message. A voicemail does the same thing. So if you leave a voicemail message for someone, they're going to get the banner notification. They'll get the notification here in Teams kind of a thing, but they'll also get a notification in their email with the actual voicemail message. Just so you know, we get all these great notifications. Well, I'm going to create this urgent just so you can see what it does. I'll get the bell and it will give this red notification here. But I want you to stop and think about, is the person available right now? So what is their current status? Your Teams icon down at the bottom of your screen, if you hesitate on that, it feeds off your calendar. So right now I'm in a meeting. I'm in this meeting. So my icon is red. So if somebody looks at my profile circle or they're going to chat with me, they know that I'm busy right now. So you want to make sure that they are either green, they have a green icon for they're available, or yellow, where they're just saying I'm away for a second. You never want to send a chat or an @mention and things to someone that has do not disturb. I actually have that in etiquette in your handout as well. That's important to understand because there's a reason they changed their status to do not disturb. Only an urgent message will get through if they have it themselves marked as do not disturb. Otherwise, other message chats, those kind of things will not come through until they change their status. I didn't know if you knew that, but just so you know. So anyway, I'm going to create this urgent message and say, please call me ASAP, which I don't like to normally use that. And then I can go to the send. But just so you know, something that I recently discovered, which I think is absolutely fantastic, is that you can right click on the send icon when you do a chat or a post, and you can actually choose when exactly you want to have this be sent. So if I want to create a chat right now, but I don't want it to go for a half an hour or tomorrow at 8 o'clock, whatever, you could actually choose the date and the time and then click send at scheduled time. I think that's a pretty cool little feature. I'm going to go ahead and just send it now though. So my other computer, my student one computer, is getting all those notifications saying that they have this urgent message. And you can see the urgent message that I posted here in the chat. It's got the red bell. It's got the red bar on the right-hand side. Of course, I can add different things to it, even though it is an urgent message. So I'm going to reply to it right away, just so I don't have to see the messages keep coming up. Okay. So I replied to the person, so I'm not going to keep getting those notifications every 2 minutes for 20 minutes. But I think it's a great feature. So voicemail and notifications are a big part of using Microsoft Teams as well. At the top right of Teams, where you have your profile circle, if you haven't been in here yet, highly recommend taking a minute to check it out. When you click on it, you will get a drop-down menu. From here, you can change your status. Right now, you can see my status says I'm in a meeting because it was feeding from my calendar. But if I want to set a status message that says I'll be done with my meeting at 2, or I stepped out for coffee, be back in 15 minutes, I went to Starbucks, whatever. Also, the big thing for me that I do is I go to this manage account. When you go into the manage account, on the left-hand side, you have several different settings. These are team settings. These are settings for the entire application called Teams. So you have account information, privacy, you have a general tab as well. I have mine set up to auto start. So every time I reboot my computer or shut it off, turn it back on, it automatically starts. But on the privacy, you can actually manage your do not disturb options. So if you want to change the default settings, you can change your notifications. You could choose your devices, your app permission, accessibility options, captions if you need to use captions, your files, where are they defaulted to when you download. But the big thing that I wanted to show you right now is calls. Because when we talk about that feature with voicemail, there is a generic voicemail. So if somebody calls you through Teams and you don't answer, after 20 seconds, it's actually going to go into their voicemail. So by default, 20 seconds. And I do like the generic. It's better than my voice, I think, so I didn't change mine. But you could click on configure voicemail and set up your own voicemail if you wanted to. Just so you know, you could do that. Okay, so if you haven't been in there, now's your time to check that out. Good features in there. You don't want to always keep the default settings, which they might be fine for some things, but just so you know, you can modify those. And then another feature that I wanted to mention when it comes to settings is if you are doing meetings with Microsoft Teams. So let's say that I'm in Outlook as an example, because we could create a meeting, a Teams meeting in Outlook, or we can, of course, create a Teams meeting directly in Teams, especially if we're going to connect it to a channel. But let's say that I want to actually create a new Teams meeting. When I go into the window for a new Teams meeting, something that I think people tend to forget to think about is, and we have to think about the hybrid things now too, which we could do a whole class just on that. But we're going to put in what the title is going to be. We're going to put in who's required to attend, who's optional, all of those normal things. And because I said it was going to be a Teams meeting, I have my link information down here at the bottom. But what you may not have done, or what you may not have ever done with any Teams meeting, is either when you start the meeting, you can go into your meeting options, or you could do it when you're setting the meeting up. So down here at the bottom, I have a hyperlink to get into my meeting options. I'm going to click on meeting options to show you that it's actually going to open a window on the internet here where I can set up what my meeting, what my meeting is all about. So can people bypass the lobby? If so, who? Can they come in with their cameras turned on? Do we allow mics? So these are things that we can be turning on and turning off. So if I don't want people to, show their cameras, I'm going to turn that off. If I don't want people to use their mics, I just want them to be using the chat feature, I'm going to turn these off. So these are commands that we can actually control before we have everybody come to the meeting. You can do that when you're in the meeting, because sometimes I forget. I can still go into the menu once I start the meeting and modify these meeting options. Okay, so if I forgot, I can still go back and do it. Once you make any changes to this, make sure you do click on save. Make sure you click on save so that it's saved for this specific meeting. Okay. So not sure if you've used that feature before, but I tell you, it's absolutely wonderful. Cancel. All right. Let me jump back into Teams and let's talk about a couple of other things related to Teams here in our last few minutes. I really think it's important to really kind of think about how you should be communicating and who you're communicating with and what is the topic, because we need to understand what's the most appropriate method. What's the most appropriate method when it comes to doing chats? Should I chat or should I email? These are things that I'm putting in my governance plan for using Microsoft Teams so that people have a general idea of what etiquette they should be using. If it's just something very quick and brief, send an email. If you go back and look through the emails that you've sent or that you've received and look at the content, you could probably discover a lot of your emails should have been chats. They're not really appropriate for email. Email is a little bit more formal, but I can share files in a chat. I can do so many things in a chat. It's believable. So you want to have some guidelines as to what your etiquette is with chat, what your etiquette is with meetings and things like that. So one of the things with meetings, when we talk about etiquette, join a meeting when you are going to join a meeting, whether you are hybrid or you are remote, doesn't matter. When you join a meeting, you should always join muted. Always join muted. We have a tendency of you needing to adjust our headset. We're banging things around and everybody can hear that. And we have it's a courtesy. So come into the meeting muted. Use backgrounds, blurred backgrounds or a generic background, depending on what your office looks like. Sometimes you may forget what you have in your background of your office or your current environment. I did a meeting at an airport once. Not a good idea. I did not change my background. And the people in the meeting were more worried about what was going on in the background of me than they were about what I was saying in the meeting. So choose an appropriate background. Turn your camera on when possible. That's why we do virtual meetings, is so that we can see each other. Okay. Download the Teams app on your computer. Make sure you have your phone ready, whatever the devices that you're going to be using, and make sure whoever you invited, they do the same. Because what if they're not a Teams user? They're from a different company. You want to make sure that they are prepared prior to the meeting as well. Don't over-invite people. Oh, I think I should invite so-and-so also. Do they have a real purpose in this meeting? Sometimes we say, let's just open it up to anybody. That's when meetings are not being controlled. So think about little things like that. Stay muted when you're not talking. So you shouldn't really have your microphone on. There's so many times that I have done this, and that's why I have this on the list now, is because I forgot I was just talking and I didn't press my mute button, and I'll turn around because a coworker asked me something and I'll turn around and start talking to them, totally forgetting that I have had my mic still on. So get into the habit. It's really a matter of changing our habits. Get into the habit of muting yourself. Zoom in when sharing your screen. I have even changed my mouse size so that when I'm doing, depending on the training that I'm doing, I have a different mouse size so that they can follow my mouse easier. So make sure that you're doing the appropriate sharing options. Make sure you're sharing the right screen. I've done that. Shared the wrong screen. Everybody was seeing my Outlook instead of my presentation or whatever I was supposed to be doing. And then take advantage of the statuses. There are several statuses that will be fed through Outlook. Like if you set up your out of office assistant, that's going to show up as your status. Even if I'm in project, I'm in Outlook, etc. As long as I can see your profile circle, I will know what your status is, your presence. It's also known as presence. So I could see here that student 1 is away from their desk right at the moment. This has helped me so many times. I showed up to La Crosse County where I'm from, and I have a training center there because I do so much training for them. And I immediately logged on with my county account, and the person that I needed to talk to right away, I went to send them a chat and I saw that they hadn't even logged in yet. So I knew they weren't in the building. I mean, so take advantage of noticing what that icon is telling you, because I could be, sending chats to that person or emailing them, and they're not even in the office. They're not even logged in on their computer. So, and we're waiting for a response. So make sure that you're reading those appropriately. Understand what the circle is telling you. Okay. And then respect Microsoft Teams etiquette if they are set on that do not disturb, as I had mentioned. Don't try and call them. Don't try and chat with them. Don't even send them an email right now. Delay it. Delay it for 30 minutes. Focus on the things that you could be doing while you're waiting for that person. Do something else while you're waiting. You can always delay a message. You could delay a chat. We have those capabilities with both. So don't send something, just take it, into consideration. If they put do not disturb on, there's a reason. They could have had somebody walk in their office and they're, doing a one-on-one meeting, whatever the case might be. This is a wonderful program and it continues to grow. As a reminder, if you attended the basic class that we had done, I just want to remind you that on your navigation pane at the bottom left, if you click on help, if you want to find out what's new in the program, because Microsoft is continuously improving, adding new features, go into what's new. This is going to be a place to find out what has been added in my current version, whether I'm using the desktop or the web version, or I'm using my Android device, whatever the case is, you can come in and see what's been added in. Okay. Well, did anybody have any questions for us today, Alan?
Yeah, we did. And I wanted to add just a couple little tips to your really great list of tips there. And I will say one other reason that you want to mute, and not that I think people should be multitasking during meetings, but one of my pet peeves is when I hear somebody's keyboard rattling during a meeting. It's incredibly disruptive, and it just makes you very aware that they're really not fully engaged. So, so try not to multitask and certainly mute. But a couple of other things that I think are really helpful, and these are, I think, kind of basic now, but a headset. Get a headset. And I think, there's just so many reasons for it. I don't understand why lots of people don't, but, if you're in an office, obviously you don't want your call to be, your coworkers to have to listen to it. If you're talking about anything private, you want to have some confidentiality. The audio quality that you transmit is just so much better with a headset and a microphone, especially as you can see, Jolynn has a little boom microphone, and I do here too. So that makes a huge difference. And then the other thing is, and I spend so much time, in front of the camera, is that I think having a little ring light is helpful. So I'm going to turn mine off just so you can see the difference, right? So, having that $40 light that just kind of, illuminates you just makes it just a better experience, I think. So just a couple other little tips that I think probably lots of people have picked up on already. And we do have a couple questions here.
Good.
So the first is, how will Excel work in Teams? And I think you sort of demonstrated a little bit of that, and I'm not sure exactly if I understand the intent of the question, but maybe you could take a shot at it.
Oh, absolutely. So there's a couple of things when it comes to working with another app in Microsoft Teams. I could go directly to this left-hand side and click on Files, and I can directly work on any of my files that are cloud-based, whether it's coming from a document library, from SharePoint, from OneDrive, it's coming from inside Teams. So if I have an Excel file here, I can go ahead and open that Excel file directly from here. So if I go into paddle sports rental, whatever the case might be, I can open this file and it's going to open it directly here in Microsoft Teams. I'm using the online version of Excel. Now I'm just going to go ahead and close that. So I'm back into my Teams again. If I'm in Teams, I can do exactly the same thing. If I go to a channel and I go to the Files tab, if there is an Excel file that is already stored here, all I have to do is click on the name of the file. It's going to do exactly the same thing. It's automatically opening it in Excel directly here with inside Teams. It's the online version. Once again, at the top right, I can go ahead and click close. Oh, there went my mouse again. Sorry, I got to turn it off and turn it back on. I'll change my battery. Sorry about that. But another thing to consider is you can have a tab going across the top. So I had a tab going across the top for Excel on one of these channels. I thought I did.
You did, yeah, I saw it.
I'm trying to remember which one it was, but let me go back to this general channel because I had an Excel file that was stored in my files tab here. And if I want to add that to be a tab at the top, I'll click on the plus sign. I will then click on that Excel, as I mentioned earlier, then I can choose whichever file I want it to be. So I could go into my files, I could go into any of these channels, into any of these team files, I could go into wherever I need to go to actually locate that file. Okay, why are you not going into my files? Come on. For some reason, it's being very slow at this second. Come on, there you go. So I came into my files. I'll just open up a Excel file just so you can see. I can add that to be a tab inside the channel. If it's specifically related to the channel and I want everybody to have quick, easy access to it, I could just open it by having it as a tab here up at the top. Okay. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, and another thing that we might want to just talk a little bit about is the three dots. So you can choose how you open that file, right? So you can open it with Teams, you can open it in the full-blown Excel app.
Correct.
Right? So,
correct. So you can choose how you want to actually, so if I open it and I didn't choose, I went to use a feature and it's not in the online version, I could actually go to this edit up at the top and I can say open in Excel. So I can open it in the online version or I can open up in the desktop version, depending on, of course, what it is I need. Okay.
So Claire, let us know if that answered your question. Just shoot us another Q&A
yes.
thing. And another question here, and this is really more to do with somebody here who has wanted to use Teams to create kind of an ad hoc meeting with maybe people that don't have Teams. So, this example is a family meeting. So wanted to maybe do a, family gathering using Teams like we do with the iPhone using FaceTime or Zoom or something. So, and then just kind of struggling to do that, not really being able to make it work. Is there a simple way to do that?
Yes. You have, depending on your computer, so if you have a computer at home, you can use the free version of Teams. So can your family members, or you can just invite your family members. And you know how you don't have to have a license for Zoom to attend a Zoom meeting? They don't have to have a license for Teams to attend a Teams meeting also. So
Right.
there's great YouTube videos out there to show you exactly how to do that as well. But there is a personal version of Teams that you can be using that is free. You could download that on your home computer, or if you're going to be using your business computer, you set it up just like you normally would a business meeting. You just invite the external members if you have rights to invite external members, and then your family members, because I've done this with my family, invite your family members, and if they don't have Teams, they're going to get a message on their email that they can click to, just like with Zoom, they can have the little downloaded app.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And should that work on a phone as well?
Yes, yes. You can download the app for Teams. You do not have to have a business account to do so. They can use a personal as well. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. All right. I am not seeing any other questions. So a great session again, Jolynn. Thank you so much. I think there's a couple little announcements we have here at the end. We just want to give people a heads up on the upcoming training events, which are escaping me right here. Okay, so here we go. The next two.
Oops, I think I have there. That'll give the dates.
Yep, that's it. Yep. So so April, we've got Microsoft Planner. And then SharePoint Beyond the Basics in May. I will give you a little bit of a preview that I think we're going to be doing something AI related over the summer, maybe a chat GPT. We've got some planning sessions coming up on that. And I really like the idea, and I made a note on this, Jolynn, of maybe doing a session on talking about hybrid work environments and really best practices for hybrid work environments. Yes. I like that topic a lot. So
me too.
So stay on the lookout for those. The sessions that you see here on the screen are on our website. There is a registration link for both of those. You can certainly sign up. We'll send you an email reminder when it gets a little bit closer, but if you want to just take care of it, you certainly can. And just again, the recording in this session will be up probably tomorrow. So thanks everybody for being here. Thank you, Jolynn, and hopefully we see you all here next month.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.